So we begin in Washington, where Capitol Hill was put in lockdown this afternoon. Shots fired on a nearby street following a police chase. A female driver was reportedly shot, and a police officer has been injured in a crash. This incident apparently began outside the White House. Authorities say a woman rammed a barricade there and then got into an altercation with police. She reportedly took off in her car in the direction of Capitol Hill. Her vehicle ended up outside the Hart office building. That's where witnesses say they heard as many as 9 shots. The lockdown has now ended, but police are still searching what they describe as 2 crime scenes. Let's go to the CBC's Lindsay Duncombe. She's been monitoring this situation live from our Washington bureau. What more can you tell us, Lindsay?
Well, that first crime scene is not far from where we're perched here. It would be at the White House. And what we're hearing from officers, as you mentioned, is that this car, which we're hearing was probably a small black vehicle, witnesses say, tried to actually ram the barricade. We're not sure exactly what part of the White House. And then after that, took off on a high-speed chase. Now, at some point during that high-speed chase, and it's not a long distance to the Capitol, there was some sort of crash involving a police vehicle. At that time, an officer, a man, was injured. Our own Paul Hunter saw him being taken from an ambulance to a helicopter. Right now, we are still waiting on the condition of the injured officer. Police, at their most recent briefing, were not able to say what had happened to him. But after that crash, or in and around the time that crash happened, the chase went on to the Capitol building, which is the heart of the United States government, right at the front steps of the Capitol there. And at that point, we know that there was some sort of firefight. The people describing hearing gunfire, that it sounded like firecrackers or something like that, repeated pop, 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 that we've heard so many witnesses describe in so many shootings here. Of course, what is different about this is that we're talking about such a secure and such a high-profile place. We do not know where the gunfire came from, whether it was the suspect in the car or whether it was the officers themselves. We do know that at the time, people who were standing in the area, a huge number of tourists are in this area all the time, actually took cover. They heard the gunfire. They ran behind bushes. There are pictures of that being circulated on Twitter, and we do know that the suspect was taken away. We do not know her condition. There were some reports that this female suspect had died, but those are unconfirmed reports, and the officers who gave the most recent briefing were unable to confirm what her condition was. We do know that this whole Washington, D.C. sort of went into its lockdown process, as it would. They briefed the president over at the White House. The White House went into lockdown. I want you to take a listen to the briefing from the police officers earlier, just to get a sense of how the incident went down.
At about 2:18 this afternoon, there was a vehicle in the vicinity of the White House that apparently attempted to pass a barricade. The vehicle was attempted to be stopped by Secret Service Uniform Division. Shots were potentially fired. They pursued the vehicle. The vehicle struck one of our vehicles here at 2nd and Maryland. 2nd and Person Con here, and then ultimately ended up at 2nd and Maryland Northeast, where it crashed into one of our barricades. At this time, the scene is secure. Both scenes are secured. We initially locked down some buildings in the Capitol vicinity. That lockdown has been released. We have no information that this is related to terrorism or is anything other than an isolated incident.
And one of the things that that same officer did mention in response to a reporter's question at that same briefing was that it is believed that there was a child in the car with the suspect. Now, he didn't say for sure, but he said it is believed there was a child in the car. We don't know anything about that young person, how old they were, whether it was a little boy or a little girl, or its relation to the suspect. That will be one of the things that we'll be waiting to hear from officials. We are expecting the next briefing likely in 10 or 15 minutes.